A Nascent Kaleidoscope. Chapter 56. Look, what if we change the design? You want to achieve a subspecies for the scale male? Not even having achieved balance breaker for a month, and you're already wanting something different. I pushed myself up off the ground, arms shaking as it was the only thing keeping me from falling on my face. I blew in front of my face to clear a few strands of hair out of my eyes as my arm bent down and my nose just barely touched the ground, only to push myself up again. Not a subspecies. I like how the original scale male works. I want to change out it looks, cosmetically. I breathed out, continuing my push-ups. A subspecies. It was a description on sacred gears. Essentially, they can change based on their users' needs and desires, becoming something unique to that current wielder, thus called a subspecies. For instance, if Drake's scale male, his balance breaker, evolved to grow multiple arms to allow me to wield all my swords, that would be a subspecies of his balance breaker then. It would a specific addition or alteration unique to me across all his wielders. My eyes looked up towards Drake, or rather the gauntlet sitting on a table with Scat Hack as she kicked her feet up and was reading one of the spell books I brought with me. The one on my OG arts. She was curious about that particular school of magecraft and wanted to understand it better. She probably shares similar thoughts with me in this regard. New information is always interesting. I actually asked her to take Drake out. I wanted to see the process by which she did it. And Drake enjoyed being out and about sometimes as well, actually being able to have conversations with other people, or just Scat Hack. It didn't hurt me any, and why not make my partner happy when I can? What makes you think I can even do that? The gem on the gauntlet lit up as his words echoed out. You told me some restrictions were loosened. I'm just taking a shot in the dark here. Not end of the world if this doesn't work, but may as well see what options I have. That design is iconic. Everyone knows it belongs to me. Well, that's not a denial. I'm not dissing your look, I'm just saying, it isn't optimal for me, it's too bulky. Are you calling me fat? Yes, I said without hesitation, unable to stop myself from smiling. More weight. More weight. Scat Hack looked up from her book. More weight. He confirmed. Scat Hack nodded, picking up a large boulder sitting next to her chair and tossed it on the one already weighing down on my back. Dick! I shouted as the weight almost made me collapse. I was about to bring my other hand down to catch myself, but either keep one hand off the ground or you can lose one permanently. Scat Hack didn't even look up, flipping another page. Yes, ma'am. Oh, take his right. That's the one he uses to. Shut up, you fat dragon. I quickly cut him off. I'll paint the boosted gear white and call it divine boosting, don't test me. I dare you. Boys! Scat Hack interrupted, not even raising her voice. Fine. I calmed down. But seriously, it's not good if I'm going to be wielding a sword. What's wrong with it? You did fine against that dragon before. Please, I could have beat it up with a ladle and the results would have been the same. I rolled my eyes. It was designed for a brawler. How many wielders of yours were proper martial artists or did more than just punch things harder? I hate that you have a point. He conceded. Yeah, the vast majority of his previous wielders joined the club of let's punch things as hard as possible. It wasn't particularly their fault. The boosted gear lent itself towards that development right from the get-go. Adding on to the fact that almost all his previous wielders started out as mundane humans, they didn't really have any other options at the start. Sacred gears usually awaken under great stress. Not many mundanes are going to take the time to learn something like martial arts or swordsmanship if their lives are being threatened like that. Fastest way to power was the way to go for the majority. Look, I'm not trying to remove your style. It will still be similar, just less bulky and more armorish, to be more like actual armor and not like a Gundam. Like the spikes at the elbows. They limit my full range of motion and interfere with my sword. Have you ever heard about elegance and simplicity? Don't get me wrong, I actually like how the balance breaker looks, but it's just not practical for me. Changing it into something resembling armor is the best course of action. I already have a few thoughts in my head on how to go about it. Fine, I will consider your words. Draw me some sketches and maybe I will change the design. Drake grumbled. I'm sure we can find something you like and will work well with my abilities. What are you up to? Scat Hack asked. Just past 1300. I replied, pushing myself up. You were supposed to do 1,000. She just stared up, blinking. I shook the rocks off of me with a loud thump and stood up. My arms were sore and I moved them around to get the stiffness out. Meh. I shrugged. She just shook her head with a small smile on her face. Well, that is a good warm-up, I suppose. She reached out, and her spear jetted towards her open palm. Prepare yourself. I smiled, letting my swords fly out. I leaned back, enjoying the feeling of hot water washing over my entire body. The feeling of my bruises being subsumed under the warmth was something I couldn't quite describe. There was a hot spring behind Teacher's Castle, and I apparently just now found out, after being here almost a year, because someone didn't tell me. Bitch, how's the water? I opened my eyes, looking up, unable to keep the surprise off my face. My teacher stood there, scat hack, right above, completely naked. Error. Reboot in progress. How long do you intend to stare? She laughed, walking over to the ledge and dipping her feet in. It would be difficult to describe how beautiful this woman was, and the confidence she walked around under my gaze. She truly did not feel any amount of shyness to be naked in front of me. As long as I can. I shot back. On a side note, that illusion did do her justice. Her lips curled up, amused at my words. Perhaps there is hope for you yet. She slid down into the water, allowing her ample cleavage to stay just above the water line. I have seen heaven. Death no longer scares me. Are you just here to tease me? I asked, turning my gaze away, but the image was forever burned into my mind. I doubt any healthy men with a desire for the fairer sex would forget something like that. Perhaps it is just a side benefit. She smirked, scooting closer to me. Does it make you uncomfortable? She said, shyly, using her arms to push her breasts together. Her eyes locked with mine for a moment before she broke down and started laughing. You're so similar to Satanta, yet so different, he wouldn't have waited even a moment to jump me. Don't compare me to that mutt. I scowled. The very epitome of every hole is a goal. I thought with a certain part of my body, often, but I at least had some standards. Shall I also teach you my friendship of the thighs then? She stood up, looking right at me. Isn't that what you said before? You were taken by my legs? She gave a sultry look. It is my duty to teach you everything I can. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't think I've ever been in a situation like this before, and I find myself uncertain on how to proceed. I'm no stranger to a woman's touch, but this was just something else. I believe I owe you a reward after all. She got close enough to whisper in my ear. How about it? Do you wish to share my bed tonight? You merely have to say the words. Was she trying to get me to give in? Was it just some sort of game to her? I was tempted. Oh, I was so tempted, but I also had my own pride. I turned to face her, my hand coming up to gently caress her cheek. Our faces were a breath apart. Gently, I placed my lips against hers for a brief moment. No, thank you, I replied, breaking away. The look on her face was one I would treasure, the look of utter bewilderment at my declaration. Has anyone ever said no to her like this? I'm sure she's used to any man she propositions to practically jump at the chance. Hell, it took a lot more willpower than I was willing to admit to decline. Even so, I couldn't help but smile at her dumbfounded expression. I'm proud of you. Drake said I got out of the hot springs, leaving my teacher to her own thoughts. Though I am curious as to why you didn't, you know. Fuck! I couldn't help but chuckle. I'm not a child, I said, shaking my head. But to be honest, I'm not 100% sure myself. I think it just feels kind of cheap, like she wasn't really into it beyond pure fucking, and if we cross that line, I don't think I could stop myself from falling, and it would make our relationship awkward if it was just my one-sided affections. Chapter 57. The past few days had been odd. Particularly, the relationship between me and Scat-Hack had taken a strange turn. She was acting different than usual. Well, somewhat different than usual. Touches that lingered a little bit longer, excuses to get closer less. Venomous with her words when the mood struck her. I mean, she would still go for the metaphorical jugular when the opportunity presented itself, but there was no bite there like before. I thought for sure she would be more distance, or perhaps even annoyance, yet it seemed like the exact opposite. Don't get me wrong, she still kicked my ass without any remorse. Her spear still drilled holes in me when I revealed any openings, and even when I didn't. She at no point was willing to concede a defeat to massage my ego. Her spear remained ruthless and precise. Her job as a teacher was never compromised. It's just, I suppose she was acting more gentle. Truthfully, I didn't know how to take it. When did I even start feeling this way towards her? I had no intention of even starting something like this. It isn't like I seek out anything with a nice pair of legs to woo or develop feelings for. With Meridia, I liked her immediately, so I took a chance, even against better judgment. There was no need to complicate things. I was even prepared for rejection. It all worked out in the end, and I still care about her dearly. This time away was something that grated on me. I looked forward to when I can see her again, to hear her voice, hold her in my arms. I could only sigh, shaking my head. Artoria was a bit similar but also different. That relationship is still rather ambiguous, and I don't know if it will even develop further, but after about a year away, I still think of her fondly, and these lingering feelings still persist. So more than willing to give it a shot if she's open to it as well. I suppose I started off with a good opinion of her from my childhood. Having my mother take me to watch a King Arthur play, something rare in Japan, and I became obsessed with that until some other whimsical thing took my attention. Some of my fondest memories, I would be lying if I said that didn't skew my initial perception of her. But I quite enjoyed her temperament, her dry sense of humor, and her overall personality. Relationships had been started on less. But I still need to talk to her about everything, and I don't know what her thoughts will be. I refuse to start a relationship on lies. Scathackus, I don't know. Physically, I can objectively say she is one of the most beautiful women I've ever laid my eyes on. From that alone, she garners a certain amount of attraction, and anyone who tells you that physical attraction is irrelevant is a liar. It's not the most important thing in a relationship, but it's damn well important to be attracted to your partner. She can be extremely vicious, bloodthirsty, and downright fierce when she gets into certain moods. Yet, she's never wantonly cruel, and I can't help but find that side of her attractive as well. Not to mention those times where she can just act rather cutely. Drake, what do I do? I asked my partner. You seriously asking me? He said incredulously. I don't really have anyone else right now. I grumbled. Dragon relationships aren't really something you would want to imitate. I think I heard Drake sigh. I've been around humanity enough to understand them better than most of my kind, but I still don't care about a lot of issues you lot face in such things. That's true. I guess a dragon wouldn't really care about such things like dating or courting. Actually, you would be surprised. My first mate, I courted her with treasures and powerful prey. Huh, how did that turn out? I actually didn't know much about Drake's past. She was a wonderful mate, strong, with glistening purple scales. Drag began to reminisce. Her fire had this purple hue to it as well. It was beautiful even if it couldn't match my own. Even our daughter inherited her mom's coloring. Daughter! I was genuinely surprised. Did you think I haven't had children in the past? Drake chuckled. I am very old, brat. I can't boast about the age some of these gods walking around with, but even your teacher is still young compared to me. What about your kids? What happened to them? I truly never heard of this before. His children should have been powerful. They died many centuries ago. My son and daughter, barely more than whelps when they were killed. His voice turned, quiet. I have not had children since then. After that, I suppose I never found a proper mate again. Though, I think I may have come close with Tiamat, but then I screwed that up. Tiamat, the goddess of life and creation, specifically of salt water. I was surprised to hear about that as well. Not so much a goddess these days. She no longer has any divinity. The whole, separating her body to make heaven and earth was somewhat literal. It was half of her divine half that was used to make what the ancient Mesopotamians considered the world. She only retained her draconic nature. Honestly, the era back then was similar to your layers that existed in this world. An interesting thought. I hadn't even contemplated how that world operated that long ago, what logic dictated things. I wasn't around back then, but from what I understand, the world was quite literally bigger before humanity took over. That's to be expected. Belief and imagination drive many metaphysical concepts. If humanity started turning away from divine explanations, then things world react accordingly, especially if the more wondrous side of the world was prominent among the more prolific race. Though I also had one thought clear in my mind. Tiamat, one of the dragon kings, perhaps one of the most powerful beings in that world, is diminished. There was a hierarchy for dragons back in Drake's world. At the very top you have Ophis, the infinite dragon god in Great Red, the apocalypse dragon of dreams, the undisputed most powerful dragons. Then you have the heavenly dragons, Drake and Albion. Right below them you have the dragon kings, of which Tiamat is the strongest, just barely beneath the level of a heavenly dragon. Yup, if she had her divinity still, maybe only Ophis and Great Red could boast about being stronger dragons. Wow, it's not often that even Drake would admit being inferior, even if it were a blatant truth. It really is a scary thought about how many powerful things are running around over there. Granted, most of them retreated from the greater world and usually just stay in their own little realms. But still, there are so many potential calamities that may come up, it's kind of absurd. Even if most of them can't hold a handle to the spider or the wolf, is there really a need to measure the difference if either side can start an extinction event for humanity? To make an extreme example, who cares if one side can blow up a continent while the other can blow up a country if you're staring either in the face? Well, I'm not quite at that level right now, unless I was willing to sacrifice myself, that is. A limitless ether cannon is a fairly nice deterrent for such things. And Juggernaut Drive. I think most things they would hesitate if I threatened them with that. I pushed such thoughts aside and continued on with what I came out over here to do before I got sidetracked. A swipe of my sword, and a dead tree fell to the ground. I grabbed a hold of it and started pulling it back towards the castle, and in front where I dug a nice little pit. Cutting it up into smaller pieces for firewood, I started to get a nice little bonfire going while I took out some food stuff I grabbed back in Skyrim. I forgot about this. Some of the beef I managed to pick up from a butcher before I left. I wonder if it'll taste different from the beef I'm used to? Skyrim cows are a different breed, almost like yaks with their long hair coats for the winter weather. How to cook these? Barbecue would be great. Some nice beef ribs, but unfortunately, I don't have any good sauce. I guess I'll go with a dry rub then. Are you cooking something? Scat-Hack sneaked up on me, peering over my shoulder, lips only an inch away from my ear. I tensed up slightly, only for her to laugh and inspect what I was setting up. You have a lot of things I haven't seen before. She poked some of the herbs I set out in a pile to taste them. They came from a world not of Gaia. I said simply, fascinating. Her eyes lit up at such a thing. That sword you use as well, it seemed different. Am I to assume it did not come from here? I assumed she was talking about Dawnbreaker. Yeah, it was a gift from A, goddess over there. It was rather difficult to explain exactly what Meridia was, but to call her a goddess wasn't incorrect. She sat there, watching me intently as I prepared everything. You would make a good wife. I'm sure any man would be happy to have you. Her lips curled up as I glanced over to her. Well, all teased one of us would be. I shot back, raising my eyebrow. Oh ho, it seems your tongue has become sharper than your sword, but I suppose that is not much of a threshold to overcome. She replied without hesitation. Damn, she is ruthless. I don't think this is a battle I can win. You appear to be used to those by now. She smirked. Good, just keep kicking him while he's down. Drake started laughing. Yeah, Wilhelm gets beat up funny. I rolled my eyes, used to her insults at this point, though I felt no malice in her words. Getting your ass kicked many times by the same person has a way of blunting certain parts of your ego. Ah, is your pride wounded? Shall I kiss it better? She walked up, practically draping herself off me. You're blushing. She laughed, poking my cheek. I am not. I refuted, slapping her hand away. She only laughed harder as I huffed in embarrassment. Why does she get me so easily? I'm usually the one doing this. Not used to being on the other side of the fence. There will be turnabout eventually. I grumbled. Good luck with that. Boyo, I'm not some blushing virgin. She chuckled. Oh, I will find out your weakness and exploit it ruthlessly. Whatever. I shrugged, regaining my composure, and shifted the conversation. You know, I don't really know much about you. She looked up from the fire. What exactly is there to know? Have my tales not survived in the outside world? I'm aware of the legends and myths, the immortal witch of Dunscaith, but beyond that, I have no idea who Scat-Hack is. There is not much to speak of. She got comfortable, sitting down and enjoying the warmth of the flames. I was born nobility, a mother, a father, and a sister. I ruled as one should, and then I eventually took this realm as my own. Her words were blunt, glossing over my intent. I see, forget I asked then. I just sighed. It seemed like she didn't want to speak about the past. Her gaze seemed to soften slightly. I suppose there are a few things I recall. She looked up at the sky. I spent many days of my youth walking along the shores of my home. I guess I still miss the salty air that one breathes in by the ocean. She smiled slightly. My sister and I never got along. Back then it wasn't as extreme as it was later in life, but we always fought over the simplest things. Mother always had to intervene while Father tried to sneak us wooden weapons when they got particularly intense. I couldn't help but smile lightly. It wasn't much, but it was something. Looks like the food is done, I said calmly, removing it from atop the fire and dividing it evenly. There were not many words spoken as we enjoyed our meal in peace, yet the silence did not seem to hold any awkwardness, nor any negativity. It was pleasant, and it appeared she enjoyed it as well. It has been many years since I have partook in a cooked meal. She smiled wistfully, a genuine smile appearing on her face. Thank you. That smile, it made my heart skip a beat. I would be glad to cook for you any time. I guess I need to make you my wife then, she said quietly, a small chuckle escaping from her lips as she leaned back. Well, I can't say I would hate it. Careful there. To tease an old woman like me with something like that, I may just make good on my words. She shook her head, her smile disappearing into something more neutral as she stood up, brushing herself off. I think it's finally time to pass down my runes to you. Chapter 58. One thing that seemed to take me by surprise was how intimate the ritual to pass down the primordial runes was. Very little was known about primordial runes. Even between me and Zelretch, who boasted knowledge that some people couldn't fathom, we knew striking little. Yet, that was still leagues ahead of mages in the modern era. First off, we were naked. I may have had something to say. Perhaps she was just messing with me? No. She was serious. That kind of look you get when you know not to mess around. Every action she performed, every movement she took, they were precise, calculated, and done with the utmost sincerity. We started off with a sacrifice to Odin. To say the gods of old are gone is a bit wrong. Yes, the age of gods has ended, and all divine spirits that remained retreated to the reverse side of the world where fantasy still reigns, but that didn't mean they were technically gone. Even with those ones who actually died in history. Manipulation over the world axis. It was something divine beings were capable of. Well, I suppose the more powerful of the lot were. You wouldn't see a mountain god or something like that from the east having the kind of power to manipulate the world line. The time axis was the same. Yes, gods of old could reach across the time axis to mess with the current era. It wasn't a good idea because of the counterforce retaliating, but it was possible. Well, this place might be a tad different. It was pretty much separated from the normal world. Interference here wouldn't even garner much attention of the wrong sort. She didn't explain exactly what was going on, but I could only assume she was trying to win the Norse god's favor or blessing. Perhaps it was rather automated, like certain systems back in my old world, or maybe it requires actually grabbing the god's attention so he can send his blessings across the time axis. Several pyres, were set up to burn offerings. We had no living beings to offer up, and I think we both would vehemently refuse a human sacrifice, but there also weren't any animals around to give up either. Instead, we would be appealing to the war god aspect of Odin. For the ritual, we each hunted prey, captured them, and offered those up. Undead that could fight servants. Not win, mind you, but they could trade some blows with beings of that caliber before getting crushed. I guess that only served to add the immensity of the whole situation. I know for a fact she would have gloated or made fun of me for getting less than her. No doubt she had quite the easy time finding several while I only brought back one. Did I mention we were naked? It was weird. I didn't understand the exact reason, but I could tell it was a necessity here. After we grabbed our living sacrifices, we added more things. I was advised to add knowledge unto the offering, secrets I could part with that the god would find worthy. An easy enough thing. I supplied knowledge from worlds outside the one-eyed god's purview that should give him something to look at. There were other things, certain ideas and items that corresponded to his particular authorities, his domains of influence. Fear, war, death, poetry. warriors, magic, wisdom, rage, and many other domains he can claim as his own. Symbols were drawn on our bodies with blood. Lines, words with meanings had been lost to time. After she was done, most of our skin was completely covered with these strange things. We sat down, my back facing her. She placed a hand on my back. It was only at this point that I realized what it meant for primordial runes to be passed down. She was engraving them onto my soul. It was painful, different than most would experience pain. She wasn't harming me, wasn't mutilating my soul. It was more like a tattoo. And each time she moved, the blood on my body was absorbed, seemingly connected to her writings. As she finished the first one, I now understand many things that were lost on me previously. Primordial runes, they were basically purer concepts. They come infinitely closer to the truth. That is to say, they draw their power directly from the root. Almost like cheat codes to reality. It was a bit more than that as well. They were basically imbued with Odin's own authority. When he sacrificed his eye in the well to gain his wisdom, he developed these runes, this language that allows one to fundamentally alter the world around them. It made sense why they had to be passed down in such a manner, to be literally inscribed onto my soul. The materialization of concepts, it was the most apt description of their use. The modern runes, the ones derived from these, the version I was familiar with, I could see just how hollow they were in comparison. To say they were mere knockoffs, it didn't do it justice. It was like taking a masterpiece of art and comparing it to something a toddler threw paint on. It was beautiful, but they weren't omnipotent, despite their obscene power. Equivalent exchange. There was a reason that even Scat didn't use them lightly and stuck to the derivative version, the ones called modern runes for most situations. How long did she work? I don't know. I got too lost in the process, looking inward to see her draw each and every primordial rune onto me, even being careful to work around Drake that was housed right next door. I could hear her heavy breathing on my skin, her arm on my back putting on more weight to prop herself up. Finished, she said lightly, the words barely registering my ear as the last rune is added. Almost on K, she practically fell over. I caught her, bringing her to her feet, making sure she didn't kneel over. Her legs wobbled as she braced herself on my shoulders. I'm fine, let's. Something shifted. Something was happening. Scat looked up at the sky. Being indistinctly connected to the realm, she probably knew what was happening more than me. I could feel something. I didn't know how to change it, but something was coming. The clouds in the sky began to swirl, shift and change until they began to form a face. One that bared right down on us. All-Father, King of Gods, Odin. Scat shouted, with an amount of respect in her voice I had yet to see. May I ask why you have graced my realm with your presence? My eyes widened at the proclamation. I dared not utter a single word. His presence was heavy, just merely existing in this minimal capacity. His gaze on me, I couldn't help but shudder under the weight. He didn't speak for a moment, just merely looking until his head, the projection of his face in the sky, abruptly turned towards a very familiar mountain. Boom! The peak of the mountain I climbed, it shattered. A massive black hand, seemingly made entirely of shadows and death, shot out towards the sky. The King of Gods stared, contempt clear on its face. Wretched thing, die with some dignity at least. He snorted, the words echoing every corner of this desolate realm. As the words rang in my ears, the mountain disappeared, a massive crater now in its place. The thing that gave me pause, possibly a divine creature that was killed and or sealed under the mountain, was seemingly destroyed with but a thought. Odin, King of Gods. Ahead of a pantheon, he was unfathomably powerful, which that resides in the Shadowlands. Odin's voice reached our ears again, his eyes turning back to us. Another pitiful existence. Do you also wish for death? His words lacked the obvious contempt from before. It was almost like pity, but he didn't elaborate. He visibly shifted from Scat and looked at me now. Child from another world. He spoke with no small amount of interest. Wielder of your age's great magics. What have you come here for, Odin? Scat stepped in front of me, grabbing his attention once again. She was still respectful in her tone, but more direct. Unknown knowledge drew my attention. He seemed amused by Scat frankness. Scat summoned her spear. I didn't understand what was going on, but she seemed ready for battle. Even with her face flushed red, sweat dripping down, and her breathing ragged, she would dare point her spear at the king of gods. "He is my student," she declared. "You cannot have him." "Oh, shit, that's what's happening. This is not for you to decide." He narrowed his eyes. "I have granted my blessings for the ritual. We have provided remuneration, offerings of every kind." "Humph." He snorted. The realm literally shook. "Undead creatures and trinkets. I will take my price. You may stand to the side, witch." As soon as he spoke, a pressure fell down on me, like something was drilling into my body. "Begone." Another voice joined in on this already absurd situation. A familiar golden light erupted from inside me. "Meridia," I said quietly, looking at a new figure that bore the full brunt of Odin's touch. "When, how?" As much as I wanted answer, now clearly was not the time. "Foreign god, you dare?" Odin's voice filled with anger, the sky changed color, the ground rippled. "A mere blessing stands in front of me." A blessing. She blessed me without me even knowing. A small amount of power that activated to protect me. Did she assume that another god would focus on me at some point, and did this without my knowledge? I looked at Meridia. She was lifeless. I don't think there was any kind of sentience, more like a protection protocol hardwired into this bit of divine might. Odin showed obvious anger, yet he didn't make a move. I don't think he was here in any capacity that could overcome Meridia's own power that was currently enveloping me. He was projecting himself from a different time period. That in of itself must have drawn an insane amount of power and effort to accomplish. It was unlikely he could do much more than that in this current situation. No, he was already pushing his permissions. If he tried to do more than this, I don't think the world would stay silent, even if this was a land of shadows. The small strand still connecting this place to the world made certain actions undesirable. The giant face in the sky basically sneered. "I shall have what I desire, even if I must take a different route." He looked towards Scathach. He wanted the things I knew. Why? I didn't know any secrets that could possibly sway him this much. I couldn't even begin to understand how this god thought. I looked over to Scathach again. She was barely standing up. My heart sunk. My eyes turned up towards Odin. I felt a rage inside that I hadn't in many months. "Draig!" I shouted, the gauntlet appearing on my hand. Something came for her. Probably so sweep her up and perhaps use her as a negotiation for whatever it is he wanted, since he couldn't take it from me by force. "Pierce!" I growled, shooting whatever magics or divine power were coming towards Scathach, my conceptual attack strong enough to disperse whatever it was he was doing. "Mortal!" He gazed once again, turned to me. "A dragon in a gauntlet. Thou dares raise arms against me?" Meridia did nothing, almost just like a shield. She wasn't truly here, just a wisp of power to protect me that will probably only react to an attack. "Child, don't do." Scathach tried to speak, but I cut her off. I took another step forward, clearly between her and the god in the sky, drawing a metaphorical line in the sand. "Draig, how powerful is he?" I said quietly, but I had no doubt Odin heard me because the face contorted in anger. The only reason he didn't try to smite me right there and then was Meridia watching over me. The amount of power the sliver of him possessed, it was clearly limited. I would have torn apart this divine projection with ease in my prime. Unfortunately, I don't know if you would be able to even with Balance Breaker unlocked. Doesn't matter. I refuse to allow her to come to harm. If I must fight a god, so be it. I took a deep breath, staring right up at the god who looked down on me. "I, who am about to awaken." "You've barely awakened Balance Breaker if you try to force this too. Brat, Juggernaut Drive isn't something the current you can handle. It's a death wish. This won't be a repeat of you forcing Balance Breaker like before." Draig's words echoed in the back of my mind. But an invisible force seemed to carry along with my words, like a pressure of its own to match what was already emitting from the sky. A god of wisdom, he could understand my intentions immediately, to see through what I was about to do. What caught me off guard was the fact that the god began to laugh. It was hearty, almost whimsical in a nature as he let out his long bellows. "Mortal, you amuse me." He finally spoke, and the pressure he was emitting almost immediately disappeared. "Take my blessing." The eyes on the projection lit up, and something shot into my body. Nothing harmful, I could assume, as Meridia did not move either. At that, the clouds dispersed, Whatever was peering over the vast distance of time and space had gone with it, and the realm returned to its peace. When the god disappeared, so too did the fake Meridia that stood in my presence. But try as I did, I could not find any source of her divine touch inside of me. Something to think about for later. Foolish boy! Scat Hat grabbed my shoulders. Do you understand how close you have come to death just now? Yes, but how could I live with myself if he did something to you? I said quietly. You, silly child. Her expression softened considerably, only for her to shake her head. A god's greed is not something so easily dissuaded. I should have considered such a thing, to present unknown knowledge to a god who rules over wisdom. The only thing that can stop it is their own fickle nature. If you hadn't earned his approval by daring to challenge him, if he was in a different mood, the same actions could have just as well condemned you. Yeah, many ifs were there. Many things could have gone wrong, but there wasn't really any chance to think things through. Scary. I don't ever want to be in a situation like that again, to feel my existence continues only at the whim of another being. My thoughts were broken as I quickly went to catch Scat Hack, who almost fell to the ground. Her spear escaped her grip, landing on the cold soil below. Her eyes were closed, her breathing still just as heavy, almost swaying in place. She was very much overextending herself. To even have considered defending me in this situation, it made my heart beat just a little faster. I picked her up, cradling her gently in my arms and keeping her spear in my ring for now. I took her back to her castle, finding the master bedroom almost completely untouched. I laid her gently in the bed, pulling the covers over her. Stay! A hand gently grabbed on my hand. I saw her eyes half opening, peering into my own. Please! Her voice was gentle and sweet in a way I had trouble processing. She looked so vulnerable, completely different than how she normally portrays herself. The ritual must have taken so much out of her to perform, even ignoring what came after and the stress that she probably felt at the time. I didn't need to speak. I think I answered her back with my actions. I slowly climbed into the bed with her. I felt her arms wrap around me, her face burying in my chest. Her heartbeat could be felt, and her breath tickled against my skin. I couldn't help but push a few strands of hair out of her face, and she made a noise I doubt she was conscious of. Why was she so cute like this? She fell asleep almost immediately, and I wasn't far behind her. Chapter 59. I woke up with hair tickling my nose. That familiar purple hair, resting right below my chin, burying itself deep into my body, only a few strands swaying at the movement of my breath. Scat Hack was surprisingly clingy when she slept. I don't think she let me go even once during the night, and even now she was wrapped around me. I didn't particularly mind. I suppose I prefer being the big spoon. I reluctantly decided to dislodge myself from her embrace, quickly putting a pillow in her arms as I slipped away. I put some spare clothes on I had in my ring, quietly as not to disrupt her sleeping form, but plans don't always pan out. Turning around, I already saw her sitting up, her eyes a little drowsy, but otherwise full aware and awake. Good morning. I offered to break the awkward silence. Are you okay? She looked at me for a moment before sighing, rubbing the bridge of her nose. I am not at 100%, but I recovered a fair amount. The ritual took a lot out of me, spiritually. That was understandable. My mind was still on overdrive trying to analyze these things. What was the phrase often used in various literature? A frog in a well. Yeah, it felt like I saw the true sky for the first time, with regards to runecraft. Come here, she commanded. I just tilted my head, wondering what she was wanting as I walked over. She pulled my sleeve, almost making me stumble, and flicked my forehead rather hard. Ow, ow. I rubbed the spot. The hell do you think you were doing? She stabbed her finger in my chest. I'm your teacher. It's my duty to protect you while under my tutelage. She hissed, hands balling into fists. You stupid boy. Standing up to a fucking divine spirit, ahead of a damn pantheon. She threw her hands up in exasperation. Satanta had been stupid, but you're damn near suicidal. No, you're worse. You're a smart idiot. I don't know what romanticized shite you've read about in your era regarding gods, but they are greedy, manipulative, and vengeful. It is never a good thing to get within their sights, and you waved your cock around like it meant something. You were lucky, extremely lucky. She sneered, looking at me, but looking away again with clear anger on her face. I'm sorry, My words cut off as she grabbed me again. She pulled me in, lips pressed against mine. I couldn't help but widen my eyes as I felt her tongue invade my mouth. It was long and passionate. It only ended when she finally decided it was enough. Don't you dare take this the wrong way. I am still absolutely livid with you. She huffed, still clearly angry at my actions. But I'm not so cold that such actions can't move me either. She crossed her arms, looking away from my eyes, and perhaps I was seeing things, but she looked the slightest bit bashful. Get out of my room, go train or something, I don't care. She quite literally kicked me out. I just sighed walking away. It seems like she had a lot on her mind and didn't want me around right now. I found a nice spot outside and just plopped down, allowing my swords to fly out as I mentally commanded them in the air. Drake, I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, I don't think anyone really is in situations like these. He was silent for a moment before continuing. She seemed pleased that you were willing to stand up for her, even if she hid it behind her anger. Ha! I let out a long breath, falling onto my back, letting snowflakes lightly touch down on my skin. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. At this point, do I even ask her what's going on between us? I still could recall the kiss, vividly, and I doubt that was going away anytime soon. I just shook my head, pushing those thoughts away for now, and retrieved a book from my ring, deciding to read it while I let my swords dance around. Scathack POV. Stupid boy. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I ought to tan his hide, kick his face in until it's entirely unrecognizable. I'm his teacher. When I took him in, it was my duty to watch over him. If I had to die so he lived while under my tutelage, then so be it. How dare he willingly put himself in harm's way to merely save this old life? How dare he make me feel things like this, to have my heart beat faster in my chest? He refuses my bed, then he goes and does some nonsense like that. Infuriating brat. Maybe we could. No, I can't. To even consider something like that. It would merely be a cruel joke. Regardless, we can't be anything more than teacher or student. I have no continued existence beyond this realm, and to even consider having him stay here. How it would make my heart flutter, but such a thing is cruel beyond measure. How vicious fate is, to dangle something like this, right now in front of me again. If only he appeared all those years ago, perhaps I would not have decided to venture here and spend eternity in the lands of death and shadow. Such thoughts are no longer allowed to me. I am destined for the loneliness of ice and void. He would not want this old woman's affection anyways. I retrieved sufficient clothing. A small smile rose on my face when I remember the first time he saw me naked. What a cute face he made. I wanted to devour him right there. I could only shake my head and continue to dismiss those thoughts. Regrets. Why does this continue to happen? A pair of red eyes still haunt my memories. I used to see them when I closed my own. History repeating itself. Another one came here, and my heart was once again shaken. How many times have I held back now? My desires, my wanting in for both life and death. Do I wish for something? For a way to calm this beating heart with his presence, the warmth to overcome me? Yet, I also wish for death. Dare I ask it of him? To kill me! Would it be cruel? Perhaps it is a desire of mine, greater than any other. Would he hate me if I requested this of him? For some reason, the thought of him despising me makes me feel ill, yet. I shook my head. Why bother dwelling on such things? He needs a proper reward. This old heart of mine is worth nothing. I will need to think of a way to aid him in his journey after he leaves this realm. I passed on my knowledge. It yet requires refinement, but I do not have much more to teach him. I would give him one of my spears like I had in the past, but he does not wield one. Vexing. I suppose I have not crafted something in quite some time, and I have several spears remaining. Why could I not mold one of them into a sword for him to use? I stepped outside into the cold, the air familiar yet still bites at my skin. He notices me, immediately smiling as I approach. Please don't look at me in such way. My resolve will be shaken. Wipe that smile off your face. I hissed. I told you to train, and you were playing around in the snow. I lashed out, kicking him with my full strength, his body bouncing off the ground as it landed a fair distance away. God's damn it! He shouted, standing up. If nothing else, he is very adept at taking a beating. It seems my training has been paying off. Stop messing around and come over here, I yelled, holding a wooden box in my arms. Bitch! I heard him shout from the distance. I held back a smile. I was supposed to be angry with him still. It will do no good if I break that mask so easily. I have something for you, I stated as he approached. His annoyance was replaced with interest. A box, amazing, he said, his sarcasm practically dripping from his words. Cheeky little brat. See if I don't beat you up later. Well, I don't dislike his rebellious side, even finding it rather cute. But as his teacher, such words cannot be allowed to slide. I of course slammed his face into the dirt again. Are you going to behave like a child? Do I need to put you in time out? Are you going to spank me? Careful with your words, I just may. It has been many years since I've had the touch of a man, and you continue to play this dangerous game. Have I hit you too hard? Do you think you are still dreaming? I smirked, biting back at his words. Now open this. I shoved the thing into his arms before he continued with his nonsense. This. He lost the correct words to say as he peered inside. A small part of me was taken with pride at his reaction. You made this for me. He looked at me with those eyes again, and my heart felt as if it would jump out of my chest. Why must you continue to torture me like this? No, I plan on giving it to my other student. I rolled my eyes. You daft boy, of course it is for you. Maybe with this, you will remember me long after you leave. I guess if I remained in someone's memories in the passing years, it wouldn't be so bad. I thought of your techniques, your sword manipulation ability, as well as your runic spells. I used one of my extra spears as the base and modified it into a sword. Runes are carved all along the blade, so it works just as well to stab as it does to cast spells. You should be able to cast runes with it from a distance now. Thank you. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. The sudden action surprised me. He is usually more conservative with things like this, but I don't dislike the frankness either. Yet, I hesitated. I wanted to return such affections, but I did not believe I should. Was it okay to be greedy? Was I allowed to indulge, even if it was fleeting? I still had some to teach him. He will remain here for the foreseeable future. My arms returned the gesture, the warm feeling flowing through my body. I guess I can enjoy this even if it won't last forever. Chapter 60. I jumped from a tall peak, allowing my wings to glide me down. My swords flew out, cleaving hordes of undead before they could even react. I slammed down into the center, rotten bodies and old bones blown away at my impact. The remaining numbers all turned towards me like a tide. I reached out. Mirage flew into my hand as Dawnbreaker and Ascalon hovered nearby. My newest sword shot up into the air. Whisper, I had been calling it. It was the way it cut through the air due to the runic engravings. It almost sounded like a whisper on the wind. 30 birds. I swung Mirage. The sword phantom shot out, cleaving more oncoming abominations. Dawnbreaker didn't stay still, its golden light exploding out, burning away all that came into its path. Roar! A big one came stomping over, half its body skeleton, the other made of rotten flesh with several additional appendages haphazardly attached to its body. Ascalon impaled it in the head, so fast and powerful that its head was utterly blown away at the impact. The undead body falling over, crushing smaller ones. Behind me, a massive spider-like creature emerged from the ground. Dozens of arms adorned its body. It began to spit out a corrosive acid. I stepped back, dodging the splatters liquid with ease. Withdrawing a talisman from my ring, I slammed it onto the ground. Order! I activated it. A pentagram formed under the spider, connecting to another one a few feet above it in the sky. They connected and obliterated the undead that was stuck inside. Seems wasteful for something on that level. I muttered, flinging a handful of talismans at some oncoming undead. They zipped through, turning into lights and shooting like stars across the distance before dispersing. Hundreds fallen, yet even greater numbers took their place. My body tilted down and I burst forward, slashing into another larger thing. Its rusted armor cleaved through in a single swing. I pivoted on my momentum and lashed out with a horizontal swing, decapitating a dozen or so more. It was easy to dance around the archaic weapons that swung towards me. I could do it quite literally with my eyes closed. Flicking a rune here or there to destroy any who annoyed me in particular. I continued my assault on their endless numbers, my sword never stopping. Body parts and more corpses piled up, only to be trampled on by their kin. My eyes shot up. I looked over my work and I realized it was time. My magical energy burst out, and I began to draw a single rune in the air. A primordial rune. It was a shield that Scathach performed against me in a duel all those months ago. This attack of mine would be indiscriminate, but I wanted to test it out. The runes way up in the sky began to actualize, my whisper taking the job of drawing them under my mental commands. It became darker, clouds gathered and lightning crackled. A massive figure formed in the air, completely made out of lightning that discharged from these intimidating storm clouds. Thor's hammer. The figure raised up its hammer and slammed it down onto the area. Everything went white, bodies disintegrated, those capable howled in terror and distress, and even as the power began to die down, only a scorched crater remained. Phew! I let out a breath, my shield fading, and whisper returning to my side. Primordial runes still takes him out of me. And that last attack looked good. What do you think, Draig? It had good power. The combination of whisper to cast the spell while also not hampering your combat ability is impressive. I shared similar thoughts. If I tried to cast that spell before I came to this realm, well, it would be nearly impossible to actually get off if someone just sat on me and pressured me enough. I ran a hand over whisper, feeling each rune that was engraved. What a wonderful idea. I still can't get over how well this sword worked out. And my new spell worked out amazingly. It wasn't connected to any of the 9 realms as one may think. I already solidified those spells together into their own little category. This was merely another one I created. Different than the Light of Alfheim, Thor's hammer is pure destruction, whereas my Alfheim spell is more cleansing in nature. I don't think it would have any effect on something like an angel. But there are good and bad points about every spell. I wasn't too worried about that little tidbit. I thought for a moment, taking out a piece of parchment and a writing utensil, jotting down a few notes on how the battle went. Well, everything here was cleaning up nicely. Time to head back. I walked through the massive castle doors, and I could immediately smell something delectable emanating through the entirety of the stone building. Are you cooking? I saw Scathach turn around, seeing me walk into the kitchen. To call it a kitchen was like calling a mansion a shelter. I was in the mood, she replied, setting her wooden ladle down next to a large pot. She walked up to me, rather closely, and began running her hand through my hair. It is getting very long. Do you wish to cut it? I was a little surprised by her abrupt touches, but I calmed down immediately. This was pretty much par for the course these past several months. I tugged at the length, almost going past my shoulders. Huh, I didn't realize I could even have my hair grow. I'm supposed to be a minor shapeshifter. Perhaps an unconscious thought? She offered. Probably. In the back of my mind, I assume it should grow, therefore I do it over time. I pushed my bangs out of my eyes. To be fair, I did like how full my hair felt right now. I watched her step just a tad closer, reach her hands around my head and start fiddling with my hair. She bound it in a small little piece of fabric, giving me a ponytail. How do I look? I asked, our eyes meeting. You will no longer be mistaken for a vagabond, she said evenly, turning around. I quickly wrapped my arms around her. Does that mean you like it? I felt her lean back just ever so slightly, allowing me this moment of closeness. It is something I find attractive, she admitted. Now release me. She poked my arm. I must finish the meal. I let go, allowing her back to her work, sitting down at the table. Though I think she was messing with me, bending over just a little more than she needed, shaking her rear right in front of my view. You know what would go good with this meal? Some alcohol. I saw her freeze up for the briefest moment before continuing her work. How unfortunate that someone had drank it all. I recall no such thing, she replied without giving anything away on her face. Maybe that's the side effect of drinking all my alcohol in one sitting. I snorted, and I meant that quite literally. I don't even really remember how it started. We had a drinking contest or something like that. To say she outdrank me, that would be like saying the ocean was a nice little puddle. There were times where I was drunk, and she did something to make me sober up, just so she could continue to beat me. She is really ornery when she's intoxicated too. I wouldn't say mean, but she definitely is more aggressive in her desires, be they fighting or something else. Not to mention her words get very sharp as well. Since the incident, our relationship had just become this strange thing, and we didn't put any labels on it. When she wasn't in teacher mode, she was almost bashful if I were to give it a term. She was willing to be close, to accept affection. Otherwise, it was warrior queen that did not hold back and was more than willing to kick my ass at the slightest offense, of which I admittedly gave her many reasons. Frankly, it was more of a game at this point. Scat-Hack walked over to me, setting a plate down and a bowl of soup she made. I wasn't aware what ingredients she made it with, but it smelled wonderful. Before I could dig in, she plopped herself right down on my lap, looking at me smugly. Yeah, this is how this woman did things. If she wanted something, she merely took it. There was very little hesitation on her part. Not to say she didn't respect boundaries, but she didn't pussyfoot around with her desires. Are you not hungry? She tilted her head to get a look at me in the eyes. Or perhaps, are you hungry for something else? Her lips curled up as she wiggled her butt in my lap. Dangerous. This woman is absolutely dangerous in more ways than one. Truthfully, at this point, I don't know why I still didn't give in. It wasn't really my pride anymore, it's just, for some reason I didn't want to cross that line until something was more official. Not like I was at all a prude. I still was perhaps holding out. Yes, the irony of the reverse in gender roles for this specific situation wasn't lost on me. My hand slid down, grabbing hers lightly as I brought it up, giving it a small kiss. Thank you for making this for me. Maybe you can be a decent housewife after all. She let out a small huff. You would be lucky to have me as your wife. She gently poked me, leaning back into me. I saw her frown slightly and couldn't help but feel a little concerned. Is something wrong? I asked her as she just gazed off into space for a moment. I merely have some thoughts on my mind. She shook her head. Don't mind it. Some things I wish to discuss with you later. Enjoy my meal. No other man has ever boasted about this Scat-Hack cooking for them before. Scat-Hack trusted forward with her spear, the air distorting with the sheer force. Again and again, in the time it took one to blink, her spear covered my vision. I stood my ground, sword coming up to deflect each one out of the way, at most only a few small cuts on my outer body. Following up, my sword lashed out, sweeping her from side to side, thrusts that predicted her movements and attempted to create openings. Her spear spun in ways that almost seemed impossible. Her focus was taken to the next level. She practically moved before I even made my attack. Expertly, every attack was also knocked away, deflected or parried. Even with the use of a spear this close, she was easily able to defend against me. There was no need to fanciful attacks or destroying the land. This was a match of pure skill, and I wasn't ashamed to admit I was still far behind her. I don't know how long we continued this little dance, our feet barely moving. I stepped forward to enter range. She defended, and I was pushed back for her onslaught. I barely made it through almost unscathed and pushed my own advantage again. The joyful expression on her face was mirrored with my own, the thrill of combat, my sword moving towards her neck, only for her spear to try and find my heart. Yet, there was no murderous air, no intent to truly kill each other. She was truly a battle maniac. Not in the berserker sense, but the fact that she felt so at home on a battlefield. To trade blows with worthy opponents brought her so much satisfaction. Excellent, she declared, stabbing her spear into the ground. You would have died 100 times in that exchange if it were the you when we met all those months ago. Genuine praise from her while she was in her teacher mode was far and few in between. She didn't mince words. If she said you did a good job, you must have done something right. Praise me more, I said cheekily. She raised an eyebrow, her fist coming up in a threatening manner. Yes, you have graduated from an insect into a mouse. Congratulations. Yes, I couldn't have done it without you. I nodded. Scat-Hack, the trainer of mice. I see you wish for a beating, she said simply, not being provoked at my words. At this point, I am more than aware at your proclivities. I of course did the most mature thing in the world and flipped her the bird. All right, get over here, you dandy boy. Time to take your beating. She deadpanned, cracking her knuckles. Eat a dick. I strategically retreated, very fast and far away. Her laughter was beautiful, even if it did send shivers down my back.